Welcome to Tangent PropTech, where real estate meets innovation and goes a bit off script. I'm Edward Cohen, PropTech entrepreneur and your host, alongside my co-hosts and PropTech venture capitalists Jeffrey Berman and Zach Aarons. On this show, we bring on a guest who's shaping the future of real estate. We dive into housing innovation, climate tech, the future of work, and everything transforming our buildings and cities. If you work in real estate, PropTech, development, or if you're just obsessed with making buildings and cities better, this show is for you. Sometimes the best real estate ideas start with a tangent. Welcome to Tangent. I'm Edward Cohen.
I'm Zach Aarons, not Jeff Berman. Welcome to Tangent.
Jeff is too busy owning Serhant. Serhant owns Manhattan, and Jeff owns Serhant. So, coming soon to Netflix, or Quibi, owning Serhant, featuring Jeffrey Berman. Today on Tangent, we have Dr. Tiffany Yeh, co-founder and CEO of Estia Materials. Where does this podcast find you?
Today, I am calling it from San Francisco.
Before we begin, I was thinking, because in this podcast, we talk about PropTech and tech for real estate. And when I met Dr. Yeh, I was thinking, what does PropTech even mean? Because today we're going to talk about something fascinating, groundbreaking, truly innovative to help workers lower their body temperatures on work sites and mining fields and just when they're working in extreme conditions. And by definition, and whoever makes these definitions is unclear, but by definition, wardrobe, what we wear, is not thought about as PropTech or tech for real estate. But what do you think, Zach?
I think if we're looking at a labor economy that is undergoing massive disruptions due to AI, yet still encountering massive shortages as it relates to skilled and craft labor, I think any technology that is making these people's lives more pleasant while they are doing a job is relevant for building, designing, measuring the built environment. And I have myself been on construction site, and I can tell you it is not necessarily a walk in the park. You have dust flying in your face. It's usually very hot and never quite wearing the right thing, and sometimes really cold. Sometimes you have to go up. If you do a construction project in Norway, you got to sometimes go up in the top of a crane cab in, negative 20-degree weather. And that's not particularly pleasant either. By nature, you're working in these dangerous industries, the 3Ds: dirty, it's dangerous, it's dull. So anything that can make that experience more pleasant and more safe, I think is relevant to the broader conversation about technology for the built world.
Tiffany, so you're a doctor and a material scientist. So what drew you to tackle extreme heat, not in hospitals, but on construction sites and across the construction industry?
So I am indeed a material scientist and medical doctor, but throughout all of those kind of different identities, I actually had a third identity, which was conducting global health and international development work. And I think that's what really had me think for a very long time about what it means to live and work in hot places. So I would be on different continents, living out of a backpack or a little suitcase in urban slums or rural farming villages. And there's this common problem of you don't have air conditioning for sure. You probably also don't have running water or electricity. But I just really started to think about, is there something that I can just throw in my bag and, easily attach to myself and wear whatever equipment and gear I need over it and travel with it. And that can keep me cool even in the harshest environments. And so that's what led me down the path of thinking about cooling materials and how it can apply to people across contexts.
Fascinating. Taking a step back in the macro, but also in history. I've read books, I've read theories and whatnot, but it can't be a coincidence that most developed or most modern cities are located where you have 4 seasons, where you have extreme cold, extreme heat, talking about the northern hemisphere, and then countries that are closer to the equator don't really have extreme temperatures. I mean, some of them do more than others, but they don't really have extreme heat or extreme cold. Is there a reason that is temperature, it's human body temperature, what's been driving human progress for centuries?
I mean, there's definitely a correlation between increased environmental heat and also feelings of lethargy and fatigue. I will share an anecdote of we operate a lot in Singapore. And Singapore's leadership famously has a quote about attributing a lot of their economic progress to air conditioning. And if you travel to Singapore, you've got malls and many heavily air conditioned spaces, but air conditioning can only take you so far. And so the country is really at the forefront of sustainability initiatives and thinking about alternates to air conditioning that can really cool both indoors and outdoors for the long run. And so I think this is a great example of how cooling has really helped human progress, but we need to start thinking about different types of cooling.
Absolutely. Air conditioning for me, top 5 inventions in human history alongside electricity, the iPod, the condom probably, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so let's talk about heat wave impacts. Heat waves are impacting around 80% of the global population, with estimates of around $20 billion in productivity losses and 500,000 deaths per year. So why has the construction industry been so slow to adapt even as climate exposure gets worse?
I think humans are tough. And something that we alluded to earlier is that the world, at least certain parts of the world, have always been hot. And so when it increases even just a little bit every single year, it's kind of like we feel it, but is it really worse? But if you look at over the course of 10, 20 years, then it's clear, okay, it's definitely hotter today than it was 10, 20 years ago. Now, that said, so one is that it's just more invisible in a way. It's more invisible than something like a tornado or a hurricane where it destroys in one go as opposed to a silent destroyer. Now, aside from that, I think when we think about the project economy, we've historically been quite machine oriented. So, how do we leverage machinery and automation to be more productive or more safe? And I would posit that one overlooked component that we should be investing in is the human aspect of how do we also help humans operate more productively and more safely. And that will also overall contribute to our project economy. Another thought that I have is that we have multiple stakeholders. So we have real estate, general contractors, subcontractors, unions. And so when it comes to tackling the problem of human heating, the question becomes who takes responsibility and who takes charge. So I think there's a matter of like everyone is affected, but we're not really sure who should be the ones driving this. And so really defining the problem and what's at stake for everybody will actually drive collaboration going forward.
Absolutely. So tell us about Estia. What exactly does your technology do and how does it do it?
Our core proprietary technology is called HydroVolt. It's a type of hydrogel. And when this hydrogel comes into contact with the human body or anything warm, the heat goes from the body into the gel. The gel is dry to touch, but it's comprised of 90-something% water. And so over the course of the day, this gel is going to dry up. Now, what we've done is we've printed this gel onto textiles in different formats. It can be dots, it can be lines, it can be all of these different patterns. And then we turn these textiles into garments that people actually wear. So think shirts, arm sleeves, bandanas. So I'm a worker, I put on a shirt in the morning, I go on about my day on a 12-hour shift. At the end of the day, these dots are going to be nice and flat instead of these nice round plump dots in the beginning of the day. And the way that I recharge it is by putting it in a laundry machine. So we've designed this to be as close to normal clothing as possible, going in the normal laundry wash like all your other clothing items. Then you take it out, dry it, wear it again the next day.
Fascinating. So are you partnering with clothing manufacturers? Are we going to see Estia in Uniqlo next up, or how are you distributing it, or what's your plan to distribute it?
Right now, we sell direct to businesses. So our current business model is B2B, focusing on worker safety. So we sell to construction companies, public safety agencies, and they will distribute the items to their workforce. We do have aspirations to start partnering with broader apparel brands and hopefully get this to the mass market relatively soon.
I mean, I can't wait to have my Air Jordans Estia so my feet don't get hot when Zach invites me to play paddle. So how did you come up with this? Like, how is this technology so innovative or revolutionary?
So it started as a passion project. I like put my material science hat on. I was in medical school at the time, but I just started reading into material science literature, like anything on cooling. And what caught my eye were hydrogels used in the built environment back in like 2021. And what I mean by that was in a civil engineering space. So academic researchers were lining rooftops with hydrogels to passively cool the buildings or lining packaging boxes with hydrogels to passively cool vaccines. And it caught my eye because I looked at the specifications and I'm like, if we fine tune this, we could totally adapt this to cool humans instead. And then, I had to do my competitive research. So I bought all the cooling materials off the shelf, like phase change materials, like wet evaporative cooling towels. So you soak it in water and then you put it on, and like these like battery powered water circulating vests, and like tried all of them on and still felt that there was this intuitive potential in using dry, quote unquote, dry evaporative cooling integrated into something that we already wear to make cooling that moves with you.
Curious, Zach, from your recovering developer hat or talking to your LPs, we established there's a shortage in labor. It's construction costs are going up because people can't get hired, and we also have immigration issues in this country, to say the least. But is worker body temperature in construction sites something that owners and developers are aware of, or is this something that is one of those like silent issues that people complain here and there, but they haven't actually quantified productivity costs that having workers build something at temperatures that are not human friendly can cause?
Yeah, I think it's definitely part of the conversation. I mean, if you look at a traditional day for a contractor, right, it usually starts really early in the morning and contains a lunch break and then ends before it really gets to the hottest point of the day. And if you look at in the climates that have real winters, right, we have a significant drop off in productivity during the winter. The vast majority of the work is done when the weather gets warm. I think union versus non-union plays a part in here, right? If you're on a union job, you have the union negotiating on your behalf to only work these hours, but there are tons of non-union laborers, subcontractors, etc., who don't have any laws or regulations necessarily dictating exactly when they can work, who would want to work more hours, make more money during the seasons when construction opportunities are plentiful, and they just don't because of fatigue, because of discomfort. If you look at a market like Miami, I'm down there all the time, and it seems like people just want to work. People are building on Sundays, which you don't really see happening in New York, but it's so hot and unpleasant in the summer. I would just imagine you're getting a productivity hit there. So it's certainly not, I would say, worker safety still more in the conversation than worker comfort necessarily. I think people are more concerned about people getting hurt or dying on a job site than feeling less productive and fatigued because they're uncomfortable. But climate fluctuations are only becoming more and more dramatic. And so we're going to see more and more extreme heat in more places. So I would bet that this will enter the conversation more and more, especially in a climate where your labor supply is constrained. And because of, if you look at the US, because of the data center boom, we have demand is voracious and seemingly incessant for skilled labor. And so if I'm an electrician and I have the opportunity to work in climate A or climate B, and for the same amount of money, and climate A is more pleasant, I'm probably going to pick climate A. So I think it's definitely part of the conversation. It's not the first thing I ever hear in a conversation, but I think will become more and more embedded into the discussion as climate becomes more extreme and demand seemingly continues to outstrip supply, right? It's a laborer's market. They get to sort of dictate where they work, when they work, to a certain extent at this point. What I will say, this is a tangent,
As we
but
do.
adjacent and related, it really drives me crazy when people say that the construction industry has not experienced any productivity gains over the past 50 years. If you look at the number of people dying on construction sites and consider that a productivity gain, that exponentially fewer people are dying or getting injured than they were 50, 100 years ago, I would argue the industry has moved forward, has innovated, has become more efficient, even if we do not build buildings as quickly, right? We may never get another 13 and a half months to build a 1,250-foot skyscraper like the Empire State Building.
I was thinking
But
the same thing.
the follow-up question, though, is how many people died building the Empire State Building and how many people died building one Vanderbilt, right? Even if one Vanderbilt, a similar size building, probably took 3 years, how many people died? I don't know the answer, but I'm guessing it's zero. And I would view that as a productivity gain. Definitely a tangent, sort of relevant to your product, but I just want to get it out there because everybody in our industry, that's like their first slide. This is why you need to invest in construction tech, because we haven't innovated and we haven't made any progress in 100 years. I just think that's hogwash because it is exponentially safer on the job site than it was when the Empire State Building was going up in 1930.
I've certainly been guilty of that here and there. And it's funny. I mean, prop tech advancement and innovation comes at the detriment of funeral homes. So that's good on my books.
It's huge. I've always wanted to do a death tech fund. Huge
I
opportunity
mean,
there.
I just saw this company, and this is a tangent of a tangent. I just saw this company that helps startups shut down. And it's
Yeah.
a startup, obviously, which
No,
I mean,
it's smart.
smart because the majority of startups ended up shutting down at some point. So
I was close to backing a sustainable cremation company, and I thought it was just awesome, but couldn't get it past my investment committee.
gotta
That
change.
company's now worth $200 billion. I'm just
Gotta-
kidding. I don't know what happened to it. I don't know if it's successful or not, but it was very interesting. Tiffany, sorry. We're supposed to be talking about temperature and fabric. I want to hear how you do it without revealing any of the secret sauce, so your competitors are just gonna. But how do you do it?
The future of real estate comes together again next September at Blueprint in Las Vegas. You'll join more than 900 built world executives and over 850 startups and investors who are shaping how the industry works from construction to transaction. With trillions of dollars in assets represented and some of the world's best innovators under one roof, this is where the future of the built world takes shape. Blueprint 2026 will be held at the Venetian Las Vegas from September 22nd to 24th. Tangent listeners can save $300 on an all-access pass by visiting blueprintvegas.com/tangent. That's blueprintvegas.com/tangent for $300 off your Blueprint all-access pass.
How do you do it?
For sure. I mean, first, I will say, I think we're very philosophically aligned. I very much agree that safer equals more productive. So those come hand in hand. Now, with regards to like, what is our secret sauce? I think there are two levels to this. So one is like the recipe of the gel. Like if you look at what's on available to people, so like what's on a consumer market, the recipe is just like an entirely different composition, like either a different class of material or within hydrogels, just the ingredients are different. So we just perform a lot better. We're a lot more similar to what you see used in like building walls, insulation. So that cross discipline is part of the secret sauce. And then another layer to that is like the actual fabrication. Like, how do we apply this gel onto different substrates, such as textiles? How do we productize it? And I like to use the analogy of semiconductors, and not that we are as complicated as semiconductor lithography, but there is some similarity there in that if you're just, if you are off by 10 seconds or 0.5% on any step, the whole thing falls apart. So it's a very sensitive process. And I think that's what contributes to our uniqueness in the long run.
Semiconductor precision level is certainly not something that PropTech is used to or is required typically. So I think that's impressive. I was thinking about an experience I had, and I don't know if you're targeting agriculture workers that work in the field, but once upon a time, I was a agriculture worker volunteer at a kibbutz called Hatzerim in Beersheba. And I was working in jojoba oil fields. And we started at 4:30 a.m. And by law, we had to stop at 12 noon because temperature was 40, 45 Celsius, 100 plus Fahrenheit. So we had to stop by law. We couldn't be out there. I was loving life. I was 18, but I was dying inside. So I'm wondering, with Estia now, would they have now told me, hey, now you can stay 2 more hours because your body temperature is lower. My body temperature will feel lower. Maybe my skin will be exposed. Anyway, I'm just curious, just thinking out loud, in terms of potential pushback out there that you've come across or are thinking about.
I think that gets to how do we demonstrate impact across different sectors and trades. So for example, right now we work mostly with construction, public safety, and what we've measured is mostly biometrics. So think decreases in heart rate across a shift on the job site, decreases in surface skin temperature on the areas covered while on the shipping container, moving things around the shipping container. And that's different than something like, oh, I can pick 5 more bushels of apples this week than I did before. Like, it's just, there are certain sectors like agriculture that lend itself well to measuring output in that way. Whereas I think that in construction or similar areas, it's more about the time spent. So maybe time spent on heat breaks, or for lack of a better word, comfort and motivation during that shift as well. And so that's where we go to the physiologic impact to demonstrate that the technology is working for the worker. And then that would translate into kind of a group effect as well.
Interesting. In terms of, how are you hoping to prove the ROI here? Will it be faster construction, happier workers, higher retention of contractors? How are you thinking about the ROI for the builders and the contractors?
One thing that we're working towards is demonstrating that, one, it just has a strong physiological effect. There's no doubt that it works. The other part is that worker satisfaction does matter to us. Part of it is the psychological impact of, if I feel better, I'm more motivated to stay. If I feel better, I'm going to take fewer breaks over the course of the day. And then match that with the quantitative output data that you were alluding to in other sectors to say, hey, in a sector like agriculture, where we can measure sheer output increase, if we can demonstrate that there, then that would also translate to, let's say, construction, where it's more measured by time.
Makes sense. Let's talk about now, your pitch to VCs and investors in general, because, VCs, some of them like AI dashboards and SaaS margins, but what's been your pitch to investors who sometimes may underestimate the scale of human-centric technology like yours?
Our value proposition is what I call a platform material. So the material is versatile. You can tune it and apply it in different ways, so that we're not selling one product line. We're not only selling uniforms or a finishing treatment for uniforms. We're talking about applying this material. I mean, we could even cool devices. We could extend into other aspects of human life for skincare, medical cases, sports, etc. So it's really thinking about all the different ways you can tune and apply a material to cooling, any type of cooling that you can think of.
Very cool. Any numbers you can share on how much this costs, or how much can construction workers expect this to add to the budget? Any numbers that you can share?
For sure. So I can share our current pricing in small volumes for worker safety garments. So a set of arm sleeves is $37 US. A bandana is 25 US dollars. So we really sit in this range where it's similar to high performing sports apparel. And of course, as volumes increase, the pricing will look different, but this has been our starting point.
So according to Google, a Nike bandana can be anywhere between $10 to $25. And that bandana will not reduce my body temperature by double digits like Estia can. So checkmate for sports apparel.
Absolutely. We, have come up with an invention that is cost effective, but also functional and providing real benefit.
Super cool. Zach, what garments would you like to see come from Estia that you think will be helpful?
Balaclava,
I love balaclavas.
right? Because if you're wearing something like that to prevent a bunch of dust flying in your face, you don't want that to make your whole head really hot and unpleasant. So that would be my first choice, I would say.
Love that. I love balaclavas. Tiffany, have you considered balaclavas yet?
We actually have. That's something that we're prototyping, really thinking about prime real estate, right? So the neck, the face are actually places that easily trap, but also more easily release heat. So those are the places that we want to cover to get the most bang for buck.
And if you need a volunteer to test these extreme temperatures, Zach's beautiful face will not do it. But Jeffrey, who is not here,
let's
but
put
he's
Jeff
listening,
Berman on site.
he can go on site,
Let's see how his, dainty fingernails hold up.
give him a placebo Estia balaclava, and
good
then see
idea.
if he actually is confirming that it's cold or hot.
We need to get him out of the ivory tower and onto the job site. If he's going to be selling all this real estate for Ryan, I mean, he's got to learn how it gets built,
He has to learn what happens when you get too close to the fire. You get burned. I mean, you've talked about, working in Singapore with prison officers, Japanese builders. What feedback has changed the way you think about product design, durability, and distribution across so many sectors, public, private?
Two things come to mind. One is function, the other is comfort, and they appeal to different stakeholders. So when we first started, we were like, if we have to, if we can only satisfy one thing, like the cooling has to work. Like if the cooling doesn't work, then what do we even have? And that satisfied the needs of supervisors and management the most, because what they want is safe workers. And if we can demonstrate safety, great. We're helping them meet their goals. But we realized in the process is that there's actually all of this usability aspect. And we need to consider that separately for the end users themselves. And so some of the workers that we've collaborated with, they're not necessarily motivated by the data. They're like, cool, you show me like X degrees, whatever. They're like, but what I care about is what I feel. And you can give them a cooling gel that works. But if the shirt doesn't fit right, if there's a zipper that like juts into the arm a little bit, is going to make the activation energy to adopt this technology a lot higher. So that's where we really started to think about the comfort and the aesthetics in terms of it needs to feel as normal and invisible as possible, as opposed to something new that they have to like learn and adapt to. It's all like about behavior change,
It is about behavior change, but ultimately, I mean, the closest thing I've experienced, and I'm not even comparing this, but my previous headphones, I replaced the little pillows and I bought these new ones that said it had a cooling feeling to it. I don't know if it lowered my head temperature or body temperature, but I certainly felt a cooling sensation as soon as I placed them around my ears. And, I wasn't thinking about the technology inside. I was just enjoying the experience. And I think that's ultimately where Estia is going to go. Tiffany, last but not least, collaboration superpower. If you could choose one person, dead or alive, to do a partnership with, who would it be? And please, nothing against him, but please don't pick Elon Musk, because 2 of the last 3 picked Elon, and it's getting a little tiring.
Well, I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm a big fan of Lionel Messi. And yes, I will say, I think workers are industrial athletes, and Lionel Messi is one of the greatest athletes in the world. and also just like such a good human. And so, really what I'm trying to get at is we're talking about human performance, and whether you're a football athlete or an industrial athlete or just like a regular amateur athlete like me, like we're all, just trying to live our life and stay active and like do our thing in a world that sometimes gets pretty hot. And the more that we can be safe and comfortable in doing that, the better for everyone.
Tiffany, may Messi bless you. That was the best collaboration superpower we've gotten.
He certainly needs more airtime and, more exposure. He's not well known globally, so thank you for promoting his brand.
Zach, who is your collaboration superpower this week?
I mean, I was gonna go with Diego Maradona, but I don't want to double up on soccer. I actually did drive by the Inter Miami, the new stadium. It's looking pretty sweet.
I bet because the current one is just, JP Morgan is sponsoring it, sure, but it's
they don't really have a current
terrible,
one, right?
Yeah,
they play, I think, in like Hollywood or Fort Lauderdale, and some.
It's a modular. It's a modular piece of.
No, this is a whole stadium village.
City.
They took over. They took over an old golf course, public course that people weren't really using very much. It's near the airport, so it's super convenient. So anyway, no, I'm gonna go with Willis Carrier today. Willis Carrier invented air conditioning in July of 1902. And he's one, Carrier still exists to this day. So enduring brand legacy. When people think of Carrier, they think of commercial air conditioning. He was a really special guy because he was a great businessman and he knew how to build a company, and he built a huge company, but he was also an inventor. And he is credited with inventing modern air conditioning. And it was a step function change. You were talking about Singapore's entire economy transforming because of this invention. I'm not sure how familiar you are with how they used to do air conditioning in the 19th century, but they used to take a giant block of ice and a giant fan and blow air over a block of ice. And that was their air conditioning. So what Carrier invented was a full step function of innovation above that. And he didn't just invent the technology and get, say, screwed out of the money like so many inventors of his day, like, people like Tesla sort of come to mind. He invented it, he protected himself, and he grew an enduring company that still exists and bears his name today. So I'm going to go with Willis Carrier. A little different than my usual selections, but I think relevant to this conversation.
A little different and as relevant as ever. You know what's funny about the OG air conditioning, ICE versus AC, is that we're in 2026 and Europe still doesn't have neither. They don't have AC and they don't have ICE anywhere in Europe. Something to think about.
They've started to layer it in, but it took a tremendous amount of people dying one summer to have them wake up and say, hey, the climate's a little different than it was in the 1700s. Over here, I think we might need some air conditioning. If you're doing a hotel or Airbnb over there, you cannot assume they have it. You got to make sure that amenity is checked off if you're over there over the summer.
Absolutely. Tiffany, where can Tangent listeners, developers, contractors, everyone else learn more about STM materials and connect with you?
For sure. Please check out our website at www.stmmaterials.com. There's a little link there to drop us a note, or follow us on LinkedIn. We would love to hear from everyone.
Dr. Tiffany Yeh, thank you so much for coming to Tangent today and sharing your groundbreaking vision, exciting company with us, and for taking the industry forward. Muchas gracias. And thank you for listening to this episode of Tangent PropTech. If you learned something new or enjoyed the conversation, text a friend the link to this episode right now. You can find links, resources, and ways to connect with us in the show notes, or reach out anytime at tangentcommunity@gmail.com or on LinkedIn. We love interview suggestions, topic ideas, or just a friendly hello. We'll catch you next time, and remember, the best PropTech ideas usually start with a tangent. If you're building something impactful in real estate or tech and want to reach our audience of decision makers, investors, and operators, email us tangentcommunity@gmail.com.